What's going on, Shadow Corner fam? It's your lovely, lovely Shadow Life Coach, Sayen. I hope you're doing okay this January 6th. It's about 7:53 p.m. my time, which is Eastern Standard Time, and I'm it's cold. It just be 1,000 with you guys. It's very cold. So bear with me as I'm trying to wait for my heater to do its thing. But it's great to be here and it's great to be in presence with y'all. I hope y'all had a wonderful second starting of your second week in this lovely 2025. So, in order for, I'm trying to make sure I say it the right way. I hope that you're doing well. So far, so good. I know that the new year seems like a challenging thing, but no worries. We'll always get through it. So, in this first season episode or the preseason episode, I thought it would be a good idea to answer questions that I've received in the beginning of Shadow Corner, kind of like an interview. So, you'll be seeing the questions pop up on the screen. So, if you have any other questions than the ones that are going to be displayed, then just make sure you either put them in the comments or you can just email me directly. All my social medias as well as my contacts are all in the description. So, without further ado, let's go in with the first one. What is Shadow Corner and how did it all start? So, and excuse the lighting, it sucks in here. I haven't got my ring light yet. So Shadow Corner started in it was either 2022, around the time that my aunt had passed away. Well, correction. It was before she passed away. And it was mainly a way for me to give out witchy advice. And that was like of how to manifest things, of how to know when you might have to resource your beliefs, that type of stuff. Or just the advice I would give my friends for free. And then I would repurpose them out onto TikTok, where we end up growing to about 1,282 strong from the last time I checked, which I am very grateful of. Um, the purpose of Shadow Corner was to give people a safe space to feel as if they belonged, and also to give a safe space of if they wanted to learn what self-improvement was, what it meant to actually dig deep and then come out better on the other side. My love for shadow work is also what grew Shadow Corner as well, because I was a person that wasn't afraid to rip the band-aid off. So majority of the time I would sit here and I would sit down with my friends and they would have problems, and I would sit here and like I would ask the blunt questions. I'm like, okay, so why do you let them treat you this way? And they were like, I don't let them. I was like, you do if it's causing you mental distress. So if they're affecting your whole bodily autonomy in this way, because as we all know, energy does not just go out into the outer fields of you, it also is directed to you by mouth. It can also be directed to you by energy transfer. Like if somebody touches you, like you'll know the difference if someone has good intentions or bad intentions. So you just um it's up to you to learn what that spatial awareness in the spiritual community. I always told someone you should at least have 3 barriers up for you minimum as someone that walks into spirituality, because there are energy vampires that like to take from you, and that could be people that are close to you. Sometimes it's people that don't even know you, but they hate that you're thriving in a field that they're trying to thrive in. So it can be something as simple as that, or they just don't like your shoes. It's literally that simple. You'll have haters simply for the smallest of things or for what you've achieved. You just have to make sure you have the spatial awareness to be able to know the difference. So when I started Shadow Corner, I wanted to help identify the common topics that I would either talk with my friends about or we would run into, or like things that we would be joking about sometimes. Just like what was one of my very first on TikTok episodes, I was talking about the ego versus jealousy running on the same street, because they do. On one hand, you have the ego that wants nothing more than to be noticed, and we have jealousy when they don't get it. The end result could be negative, or depending on how the person regurgitates it, it could be positive to where they just realize they have to work on themselves. But depending on the situation, especially the ones that I've seen, they usually like go negative for some reason. I have no idea. Maybe it's something that the person before them has to work on, or something that was reflective of what happened in their life, and you're probably the straw that breaks the camel's back. Whatever the case may be, that in itself is a reason why I wanted to point those things out during my shadow corner episodes. And I knew that Shadow Corner was going to be something that not only would be my baby, but it would be something to not that would help me as well. Because remember, even as a teacher, you're forever learning, and you're also learning from your students. So in this case, the people that I mentored or that I gave advice to, I will be coming with them, growing with them, so that way they would understand what it means to like have a community, have accountability, and be able to understand that you're not the only one that's going through things. You're not the only one that's been through this. That's why it's very important to develop a community and develop something that you'll be proud of, develop something that's not easily broken, and make sure that you have your head on straight in the end. Which also goes to the next question here. What is shadow work and what is shadow coach? So, um, to simple it out, again, in the magic community, Shadow Corner is defined as a practice that can be used to access hidden parts of ourselves and aspects that have been usually hidden. Now, these aspects could also be negative or positive depending on why they were suppressed or why they were put away. In short terms, it's like a deep inner reflection to heal wounds in life and in lives past, to get our ways to better relationships. So, translation: shadow work is a way of helping you evolve as a person. It helps you evolve as an individual. It's not something that where you do it once and like, oh, I'm healed. No, that's not how that works. Because for one trauma, there's many layers. Some there's not as many as others, but you have to stop thinking that shadow work is the band-aid to everything. It's only the starting head of it. So when you do it, you have to learn about it. Well, correction, it forces you to learn who you are as a person. It tests your beliefs. It tests your sense of resolve. And in some cases, it also tests to see if like to confirm the inner being that is you. It's just like shedding skin. You're not always going to be the same person in your 20s that you are now in your 30s. You're not always going to be the same person in your 30s that you're now in your 40s. Literally every 10 every decade level, you're something is going to change about you. Something is going to um make it seem like you're different. And in other cases, it's going to, like I said, test you with every fiber of your being. Because spirit makes sure that when I take you to this next level, or if I take you to this next person, you're still in the process of learning, and also that you're still in the process of knowing who you are and what you have to offer to your community. The one thing I've always said is that everyone has a contribution to the community, whether it not be nice or not so nice. There are, how I like to call, there's the sassy not drunks, but the sassy aunties, the ones that get down your throat about the littlest stuff, because they know the little stuff turns to big stuff. Pebbles turns to rocks. Same concept. Um, there are the sweet grandmas, but the stern grandmas that try to teach you the lessons in a way to, because you're that type of child that they have to approach differently. Then there is like the people that don't like to talk much, they just like to teach and show action and hope that you're recording or you're learning from them. Everybody, and I do mean everybody, has a place in the community that's built as just for them. But just because they're built to be in that part of the community does not mean that they stay there. And I want to emphasize on that because remember I said with the shedding period, you shed bits and parts of yourselves. So that means that in different ways, you're going to have people, places, and things that you're going to shed. So you're not going to always stay in the same place for more than like 5, 10, or 20 years. Sometimes you just hold space for the next person that's going to walk up and take the place. Other times you'll stumble upon it. It's totally up to you how the community is run. So just keep that in mind when you try to build your own community, or when you try to like uh develop one. I guess in my case, I'm trying to put it out. But the second half of that question, shadow coach. So a shadow coach is someone that dives below the surface. So I am a person, I'm a shadow coach. I'm the person that you talk to when there's questions that you're afraid to ask yourself, or there's a part of you that you're afraid to venture to. So that's where I come in, and I help you within that regard to dissect it and see why you don't love that part of yourself. Why do you not want to adapt this part of yourself? What is it that you're holding back that could actually aid you in where you're going? Like I help you with that. And not gonna lie to you, I push you beyond that threshold. Like I've had some people where it's like I've seen them rattle the fence when they make a decision. And I'll sit here and like, look, you can't jump both fences and expect to have a safe landing. You have to choose which side you're going to be on. Neutral territory is in the middle, but you're still going to have to make a decision regardless of what the outcome is. So as a coach, I know that you give people, you guide them to the answer instead of giving them the answer. But I promise you, if you have a coach now, or if you're thinking about having one, it's going to grind their gears because they want to give you the answer because they see it plain as day, but they know they can't because that's not you learning. That's you, that's them trying to force an answer that should be answered by you. And that's not part of the job. Part of the job is to help you get to that point in your life where you're like, okay, see, now I understand what you mean by this, and this. So The simplest way I can tell you what a life coach is, like in general, is imagine a giant whiteboard and the three categories of your life or more that you're struggling with, and we're trying to help you to navigate through them. We may not have like all the answers, but we'll help you get your answers by answering questions, by helping you to understand those actions, those reactions, and be able to love on those more than most. Now, like I said, as a shadow coach, I am my job. I'm not saying like my job is harder than most people, but it does come with its type of headway. And by that I mean, with that job, it comes with the sense of getting the client to understand that, look, you asked for my help. This seems very hard, but it's better than you still walking around trying to figure out the why, and I'm helping you get to the why. So, if you are looking to looking for a life coach, or if you're looking to develop the skills to become a life coach, I encourage you to do so, because it is the most eye-opening experience that you'll always have, and it'll be something that you carry on with you forever. So, now that we've covered that, let's go to the next question. What inspired you to focus on the themes like mindfulness, health, and self-care for Shadow Corner? Now, so um I wanted to focus on this field because I felt like those in not just in the black community, but those that felt like they didn't have a way out, or trying to learn how to make time for themselves, trying to get away from those excuses. I felt like Shadow Corner was needed in that space because a lot of people, when you think of mindfulness, or when you think of the word, when they say mindset and mindful, mindset is the energy you put out when you're trying to not only manifest things, but trying to bring things into fruition, or when you're thinking about things hard, and then you get what you attract. Mindfulness is understanding like where your mind goes when certain situations happens, like arguments, fights, conversations with your partner, conversations with people on a daily basis, associates, coworkers, and you're trying to understand why you responded like this, why was this your reaction. That is mindfulness, is understanding where your mind goes when you are in these different situations. So, when we talk about mindfulness, the one thing that you need to understand is that, number one, it's a practice that involves you paying attention to the present moment without judgment. So, even if it means that you had a yelling or screaming match, you have to think about, what are the first thoughts that ran through my head during that time with mindfulness. The second thing is describing in words what most people can't. Um, or in this case, describing in words how you feel without doing too much, I guess. That's the only thing I can actually think of. And also health, because I'm trying to break this down in sections. So that's mindfulness. Now we're going to jump into the health factor. So for those that don't know, I'm a certified phlebotomist, and I'm also a certified medical assistant. And the one thing that I love so much about the health field is because it's an opportunity for you to understand your whole autonomy. And it's not just the female autonomy, the male autonomy, it's talking about your autonomy as a whole. When we think of health, we only think about the inside. We think about like blood pressure, diabetes, mental disorders, all this other stuff, but we never think about like the energetic part of it, because the emotional health, the physical health, the mental digested health that you have to sort through. And I feel like that should be at the forefront of conversation. And whether we know it or not, right now we're going through that type of mental forefront where a lot of people aren't being able to see their doctors because they don't have health insurance, and then they're relying on like friends and stuff to help them through these hard times, when in actuality they're their own doctor in so many ways, because you've been with you since day one, literally day zero if you count it. So learning these types of techniques and things will help you, in a nutshell, be able to understand your whole autonomy, the person as a whole, and the person within in the soul as well. Now, and here's the last section where that comes very complicated. That we as a society we neglect sometimes, or most of the time, self care. Now, there is a giant debate on what self care is. So I've always ended the debate like this: self care is doing something, and this is my definition, self care is doing something that for you gives you solace, it gives you a sense of peace, and it helps you to have a clearer head when it comes to making other decisions. And for like for me to put self-care in shadow corner, um I help you recognize what your self-care is, whether it be something as simple as going outside and taking a walk, or you just crocheting some things, like having hobbies or anything else. Because I've always told my clients, and I've told friends this as well: before you are anything to anyone, you are an individual first. That means that as an individual, you yourself have already developed a relationship, whether it be good or bad, which is determined by you. So when you think about all the times where you could have just sat down and rest, but instead you chose to work, or you chose to be out with friends instead of keeping that social contract with yourself, you have either neglected your self-care, or you have put it on the back burner because you're like, I'll get time eventually, I'll make time eventually. The important thing is that you have to learn how to make time, like now, because we're right now, like I said, we're living in an age where it's fast paced, and it is well over the limit of like mental slowed consciousness, that we have time because we're so busy trying to catch the bag or make the bag come to us. Like it's a whole thing. But the important thing for you is to understand is like, if you don't have that time for self, you are no better than a broken glass with water in it, constantly leaking on everybody else and then expecting them to understand you. So when you get to that point where you finally get to the, I think I need to spend some time alone, or I need to actually figure myself out time, or I just need a break time, you're not going to be at your best. Instead of being at the 100 watt, you'll be at set -5 or 75. Like, you won't be at your best. So it's very important for you to understand exactly what that means of being at your best by doing your self-care rituals. And speaking of that, I think that is the next question. In your view, what is the most challenging part of self-care in today's fast-paced world, and how do you address it? So I think I addressed it pretty well in this. So basically, you have to make time for you. The world will, and this is a quote that my nurse teacher told us. She's like, the world will continue to spin while you're dead and gone. That's how much the pace of life is giving you. You're only given one ticket for life. And if you waste that ticket sitting around, or if you waste that ticket overdoing it for others, or you waste that ticket doing anything other than enjoying your life, then you will not have a life. You will just have an existence. So, how I usually address this question is you look at the core values of you. You take your time and you sit down and you write down your core values. If anything does not line up with your core values, where your self care is number one, that is a problem. And you need to be able to fix that. And you need to be able to understand where to go from here. The second thing is understanding, like, doing checks. Like, I check on my social contracts with my friends, and I check in on them and say, hey, how you doing? I hope everything's okay. Um, if they're not too tired, because life be lifing out here. And I understand life be lifing and you're out here trying to chase the bag, but your self-care also has to be part of that bag. So in this fast pace, you need to take a moment to pause, take some time for yourself, take some time for what really matters in this life, which is you, your peace, your mental sanity, and the happiness that you want to create. So let's see. The next question is, what role do you think community plays in fostering mindfulness and self care practices? How does your shadow corner help create that sense of community? All right. So this is a long-winded question. So I'm gonna try to make it as short as possible. So, what role do you think community plays in fostering mindfulness and self-care practices? So, I feel like community helps you in so many ways because it helps you to understand not just where you're lacking, but also where your strengths are. So I will put in an example of like where you're at your job. Say that you are a level one person, but you feel like you have level three skills, but you don't have like the experience. So, as someone that has a level one experience, you would stay there, right? No, you would want to progress and you would want to do better so that way you can be a level two and then a level three because you got your feet wet a lot more and you know a lot of things. So in a community, it helps you to recognize all these things uh that either you're lacking or these things that you don't see. Because remember, another set of eyes is more precious than your own. Because you may look at this person on a day-to-day basis on the mirror, but what some people see, and this is what I specify, the people that actually care about you, not the ones that's trying to tear you down because they say they see this or that. We're talking about like actual genuine people in your community that knows that you can do better and that knows that there's so much more in you, and they try to foster it out of you and pull it out of you so that way you can become more than what you are trying more than what societal norms want you to be in that case. And it also will help you like in conversations where you have to check your emotions, check yourself, using those emotional intelligence skills. And it also allows you to know what your social battery is for your self care practices. Like, one example I can give you is that I love my friends all day long, but if I know that I am exhausted and I'm saying, Lord, please help me because I feel like I'm about to nod off. And they're like, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and cut it short because I got to go to work tomorrow. I'm like, yes, yes, please say it again so I can go to sleep. and, and it's like I said, it's not that I don't want to hang out with my friends. It's just like I done got to that point in life now where it's like my social battery isn't as hyped as it was like in when I was like 16 or like early 20s. Literally, I'm just at a point where I was like get travel, having some personal time, and hanging out with good people are my top three priorities at this current moment. Because I know that at once upon a time I used to overwork myself. I used to um what is it that I'm trying to say? I used to overwork myself. I used to not sleep or eat as often. And then it's like my friends would notice more often than the most that I didn't have like the stamina as I used to. So one would make it a little bit easier for me to actually express myself, if so to speak. So in other words, her fresh pair of eyes, she's being mindful that hey, we not spring chickens no more. So we actually have to get up and go to work and do all the things. We can't be out here at 2 o'clock in the morning and then expect like us to bounce back the next morning like we used to do in our 20s. That's just not happening. I am 30. Like let's be real about this. I'm 30. I refuse to sit here and be out at 2 o'clock in the morning unless we're talking about out here in the living room, like, and I done already passed out. And it's not saying that I've like gotten old or something. It's just that I have a different mindset about me now to where it's like I think about what else can I do before I get into older age, if that makes any sense. But without her having that uh her mindfulness about like what we all needed and knowing that we all had to go to work, otherwise we would have been out at 2 o'clock in the morning. It also helped me to gauge my self-care or my actual social battery because I was like I don't have it like I used to. Like I can socialize with the best of them, but sometimes it's hard out here. So it's like it also trains you to help you say no to a lot of things, and it helps you to dictate how long and what your what your life is as a whole. Now with Shadow Corner, it says how does Shadow Corner help create the sense of community? When you're here at Shadow Corner, I will say this. At Shadow Corner, I make a space to where it's like we're real with each other. Straight up. No cap. Uh it's not as if I'm just trying to just talk at you. I'm actually rooting for your well-being, like the little or big sister that you didn't have, or like the auntie that you needed. I've tried to foster a community where they feel like they can, one, come to me with anything and be able to understand that I'm here to support them, but I'm not going to solve their problem. That is for them to solve. My days of being Captain Sava, it has been over for years. And that was for me being like a chronic people pleaser, because I hated seeing like my friends be disappointed when things didn't go their way, or didn't go as the way they planned. That would made it easier. I'm completely done with those days. So I try to foster a community where not only do we help each other, but we understand that the only person that can help you is you, and that you're able to, with the skills and stuff that I teach on this podcast, you'll be able to approach things a lot better. I've had two young ladies where it's like they had anger issues, but after working with them, they not only was able to drown down the attitudes and everything, they were able to have constructive conversations with other people when they could have just cussed them out. So there is a method to my madness. I promise. There is a method. But once you start to listen a little bit more and you start to get more engulfed in the shadow corner, you'll you'll see, especially if you've heard the first season. So let's go to the next question. All right. How do you tailor each episode to provide practical tools, takeaway tools and takeaways for your listeners to apply in their lives? So at the end of each episode, I try to give them right. I try to give my listeners writing prompts, so that way they understand that, number one, I'm not just talking for my health. I'm actually giving you homework so that way you can apply it to your life. You're not just listening to the podcast for entertainment, not just entertainment. You actually came to listen to see what you can get out of it. So I'm giving you like journal prompts. I give you exercises, and in some harder ones, I give you questions to ask yourself when you meditate, because I noticed that in meditation is where you have the most solace. Sometimes it's, and also to clarify, meditation is not just you sitting quietly in a corner with no music or whatever, or with like chime music or whatever. Meditation can be you listening to songs that read your soul for filth, and then some that uplift you within the same 30 seconds. So if you've ever heard of the song called The Journey by Her, in that song it said it's the journey, it's to get there to where you're going. And that in itself has always stirred my spirit, because it's like you're always trying to move to get to the next thing, but you're always trying to make sure that you don't leave behind the lessons that you've learned from the previous. So when you're listening to my podcast and you apply the things that I tell you in your life, I'm gonna be honest with you. You're grown. You're gonna do what you're gonna want to do. But if you truly want to be able to like transform your life better, listening to my podcast and listening to what I have to say is one of those one steps that you can do to help yourself. So I encourage everyone that's listening that when you finish like reading the podcast, actually look at the prompts at in the description below, and understand that these questions again are not to attack you. They're not to make you cry. They're, if it does make you cry, that means there's some type of progress if you're not a crier. But they're here to help you, understand your existence, your autonomy, your energetic autonomy and be able to recognize where, not just where you fit in this world, but where you can go from this point. All right, let's see about the next question. How do you see shadow work contributing to personal growth, and why is it important for your audience? Okay, so this one is something that I think I've already answered, but I'm going to go ahead and try it again. So, shadow work, again, is not just you writing in a journal. Shadow work is learning about the baby steps you took to get to the bigger steps. And that means internally, emotionally, physically, energetically. It's not just one layer. You're going to learn about what it means to step in your power and your self-conscious and be able to own it. Shadow work contributes to a lot to people's personal growth because it goes into the inner places that many people are afraid to venture. And it's important for the audience to know that when going into shadow corner or going into shadow work, apologies, that if you ask any spiritual person, it is not for the weak. I promise you. Any magical being, it is not for the weak. It is sometimes going to drag you worse than someone with a little ponytail just fighting you. Like I'm so serious when I say that. I say this with all love. The ride itself is sometimes rocky, sometimes depending on what section of your life you're working on, it'll be a little smoother because you didn't have that much for. But those hard battles, the ones that make you cry in the corner, I promise you, it helps you get to the other side of it. And it also changes you energetically. So don't be afraid of shadow work, is my number one thing. Do not be afraid of it. Be scared of like the questions and the what could be become of it, but don't be afraid of the actual shadow work itself, because it's here for your to help you. It's here so that way you'll understand what it truly means to be human, and not just human, just not just being a human being, just existing. So that's what I get for that. I think that's what I get for that. All right, next question is, what impact has being part of Shadow Corner had on your own journey of self-reflection and growth? Oh boy. All right. So, once upon a time not long ago, Sayen Gates was actually Ariel. Little Ariel had anger issues. She had a lot of mouth per se. She was nice, but was not easily tried. Okay, let's just put it this way. I was ghetto. Okay, let's just go ahead and put it that way. I was a mixture of sophistication, but at the same time, I had knuck if you buck qualities. If that doesn't give you a sense, I am from the South, South Carolina specifically, so that made it a lot harder. That made it easy and hard at the same time because one, you can't be considered a punk, and by punk I mean you can't be sitting here being afraid of anybody that steps to you. But at the same time, I didn't like the fighting because it takes too much energy. And in words of my fellow fluffy people, I'm too fat for that. Like I'm too fluffy for that. It's just too much. Uh but during that journey, when I was growing spiritually, I grew spiritually in the church because I was getting a connection with God and getting a connection with my faith and understanding exactly why my mother and my father worshiped this God. Then later on, I realized I wasn't like a church homebody. I couldn't, because I felt like they're confined in a cage that literally, I say, confined in a cage that they have freedom, but they don't at the same time. So when walking into spirituality, I realized there's a lot of free will, but there's also a lot of responsibility, but it's not as suffocating as religion. Um, it also helped me reflect on a lot of the things and situations in my life. Um, and it also helped me to understand where I wanted to go and what type of person I wanted to be. When I started to develop Shadow Corner in this, I saw bits and pieces of me grow. I saw parts of me shed that I used to use for protection. But in the end, I ended up leaving behind because I didn't need it anymore. There's one story I always told was like, anytime somebody stepped to me, I felt like the 16-year-old that not that loved to fight but was not afraid to fight would step up in front and then push Ariel to the back and say, "Listen, you are not about to talk to me that way." um and then when I got to a point where it's like I shed that part of me, I got a nod from my soul, that 16-year-old part of my soul that said, "All right, you got it now. So I don't have to protect you anymore. I'm out." And when I merged with her, that was when I understood why she felt like she had to protect me, because I didn't have too many adults to protect me back then. So I had to makeshift this person to protect me. And it was a lot to carry during that time, because I was a daddy's girl, and I was a girl that lived up in the church. You had to be some type of perfect, and I couldn't stand it. Like, I could not stand it. So, self reflecting wise, it helped me understand exactly who Ariel is, who Ariel was, and who's Ariel going to be. Growth wise, it helped me stand on my own 2 feet, understanding the situations that I've been through and nodding and paying homage to the things that help grow me. And I'm saying this like with all sincerity. I will never forget the people that contributed to helping who I was, but also I will never forget the people that helped break me as well, because they helped bring out the side of me that I didn't think that I needed, and then the side of me that I didn't think that could exist, if that makes any sense. So Shadow Corner contributed a lot to that, and me speaking out and speaking my truth and speaking up for the different ages and different parts of me, like the little girl Ariel, the 16-year-old Ariel, the 20 something Ariel in college. Like, each section of you has a voice. It may not be the same voice you have right now, but it does have a voice. And I encourage you, as a person that had to do it, to talk to them and listen to the stories that they have for you. So just thought that'd be something to let you guys know. All right. Next question is, how do you but how do you balance providing practical advice with the need for deep reflection in each episode? Okay, so this one is a harder question because I'm trying to think of a way to explain. So, professionally, in each episode, I try not to cuss. I try not to be so aggressive because those are the things that people don't respond to. So I in each episode I try to think about, like, if I was talking to someone face to face value, how would I want to talk to them? Would I automatically just go like straight hood with them on the first go around because they don't know me, or would I approach them like an old friend that they haven't seen in about 20 years, maybe 10? And I remember having like church aunties, like church mothers, and the way they spoke to me and the way my father spoke to me, I never once felt like I was threatened. So I took that aspect to grow the person that you see before you. So, and in each episode, when I bring that person to the forefront, I reflect on if whether or not that you understand me, or whether or not that you understand the message that I'm trying to bring upon. Because again, I could talk all day, uh, but I know that with these episodes, I know they're not too long, but they do or can get long. So I try to shorten it as much as possible so you can get all the nuggets out of it. And then I reflect on how I can do better, or I can deliver a message better to you guys. So, guys and gals, sorry. So that way you can understand where, not only where I'm coming from, but you understand like the love that's coming from my voice. But that's also one way that I say that question. All right, the next question I got is, how do you stay grounded and mindful while juggling demands running the podcast and your personal life? Okay. All right. This is the lovely question. So, I don't just run Shadow Corner. I have another podcast that I uh also narrate over, which is Pixel Sisters Afro Gaming Podcast. We talk about video games, we talk about movies, the different things that have transpired in the gaming community. And because gaming is also my one of my many loves, but it's like Shadow Corner is my baby. So I try to make sure that I stay grounded by going skating at least 3 times a week, or at least once a week, so that way I can keep my brain. I am a music head, so I collect music that speaks to my soul, and I try to make sure I gap that time to where it's just for me. No phone calls, no text messages, no nothing. And my friends can tell you sometimes it's highly impossible to get in touch with me because I'm either asleep, or I am going roller skating, or I'm biking, and I'm just trying to have that solace with me and spirit. Because that's also how I learned to develop the relationship between me and spirit as well. My personal life, I try to keep separate from everything. Now I will and do use uh situations in my life that has happened to make a point, but that's pretty much as far as my life goes. My my husband, he supports me in it. He feels like Shadow Corner has helped me grow in so many different ways, not just physically but emotionally, because there's been once times or many times where I've felt as if I didn't want to be here, or I felt like uh because of the way certain people treated me, or a group of people treated me, that I didn't matter. So I'd be upset and say, why does this matter? Why should I even keep Shadow Corner going? And then when I look at like the ratings and the downloads that I get from you guys listening to my voice and listening to like my story, it warms my heart to know exactly who I'm talking to and who I'm relaying to. So I have a pretty good life juggle. Like I said, sometimes I have to put a hard stop on things. Like right now I'm off for a whole week until Friday because my week started on Saturday. My days off started on Saturday. So I don't have to overwork myself, but I still make time to make sure that I get these episodes out and make sure that I organize everything with my other podcasts, and then also coexide, excuse me, with making sure I take care of me. So there's that. All right. I think we're getting down to the last of the questions, guys. Woohoo! All right. So next question is, how do you ensure that topics discussed in the podcast resonate with wide tongue tied, a wide range of listeners, regardless of where they are in their personal development journey? So, in a nutshell, I try to make sure that, again, that I'm talking to you like we've been friends for like years, or been friends for a while. I don't try to like force anything, but I do talk to friends and family and strangers and ask them like, what are some things that you wish that we would talk more about? And then I'd look on Reddit about different topics, and then I'd try to see where in my life where these things applied. And then I would literally relay it to you. Because regardless of where you are in your journey, I'm meeting you where you're at. No matter where you are in your journey, you are exactly where you need to be, so that way you can upgrade your life. And it's okay not to have it all together. It is okay for things to look like they're crumbling around you, and in hindsight, feel as if that everything seems like it's going to he double hockey sticks, because not all lives or not all people are perfect. You're not always going to get the same, how do I put it? You're not always going to get the same thing from people, because they're in a different stage than you are. Some people are in chapter 26 while you're still stuck at chapter 33 because of your trauma. And that's okay. We'll get there. You will get there. Everyone will get there. But just listening to my podcast and other podcasts is a step closer that says that you actually want to change. And that's great. And that's okay. So I hope that I always hope that every topic that I talk about resonates with the next person, because we never know what people are going through. That's why I tell people to check on your friends, check on the people that you can consider your ace boon coons, or your friends or your family that you hold dear, because you don't know what battles they face. But there's nothing wrong with being a shoulder to cry on, or a shoulder to lean on at most. So I just say take it for what it is, and then just move forward with what you got. The cards that you have now is not going to be the same cards you deal with later. So it is what it is. All right. And the last question. Looking ahead, where do you see the direction of the podcast going after this season? And are there any themes or areas you'd like to explore in the future? So, for Shadow Corner in general, I feel like we'll still be in the field of mental health, self-care, and mindfulness. Um, my direction for the season is to give you proof about what I'm talking about on everyday life. That there are people that have been where you are. Some people that's been broke as a joke and able to bounce back from. Some people that have been in abusive relationships and bounce back from. One of them is actually talking to you on the mic right now. So it's there is a other side to the stuff that you're feeling right now. There's no absence to that side. I promise you, everything is going to work out fine. Everything's going to work out like it's supposed to. I haven't really thought about like new areas or new themes for Shadow Corner yet, but if I do, y'all will be the first to know. I know if you're talking about what I want to do personally in the future, I would like to be a voice actor. Being a voice actor sounds like a good idea, and it sounds very fun. I want to be into a big name movie or cartoon or whatever. That would be awesome. Honestly, that would be completely awesome. But overall, I hope that in this season that you understand that number one, I'm here for you, I care for you, and that I'm rooting for you, and that I'm also very proud of how far you've come since the first season. Now, the first season, I will tell you, was for me. It was for the Sayen that didn't have a voice, the Sayen that didn't feel like she was protected, the one that felt as if that any and everyone wanted to silence her voice because it wasn't up to their standards or her knowledge wasn't up to their standards, but Spirit made sure that I was ordained enough to do this podcast for a second season. So that's to prove the naysayers wrong. Remember, nothing that God has can be stopped by anybody. And I'm proof of that. And there's so many other people that's proof of that. Second thing, the people that I bring on this podcast are going to be people that are actual life coaches, that are people in business, health, wealth, uh, doulas. I'll have like some of my doula sisters come because I am also a community doula. So that means that I bring babies into the world. I help bring babies to the world through emotional support. Um, I am accepting clients, life coaching and doula related. So either way, I hope that with Shadow Corner that you guys learn a lot and that you understand that you have a support team, you have a support team, you have a community, and we're just looking out for you. Not attacking you, looking out for you. But that's all the time I have for today. And I just want you to be safe. Know that I'm very proud of you. Keep going and let's start this season out right. All right, everybody. Bye for now.